unmute.
Hello, welcome everyone. Here we are on July 7th, 2024, and we want to say a gracious hello. We are here today to talk about Unit 2, Lesson 6 of part of the home study course by Walter and Lao Russell. We have our panel, which you all are coming to know and love. We have Jackie and Jim Porter. We have Karen Elkins. We have John Bosnell, and we have John Bonzel and Ken Pearson. So we have everybody here today, and we are thrilled to have you all. So as we get ready to all come together here for this time, we're just going to start off with a little bit of ocean sounds while we begin to figure out some different technical issues, and we'll turn that on and just have everybody get here and see if we can have that play for just a moment. And I chose this sound because there's a reason that the ocean is appealing to all of us. It is the heartbeat of the universe, reminding us that everything we need to know is right there in nature. This ties in beautifully into the lesson here for this evening. So if you'll just take a moment and simply release anything from your day. Taking deep breaths in and out. Knowing that this divine creator is unfolding in every moment. And may we tune into the universal heartbeat as we all come together here on this July 7th, 2024. Give it another 30 seconds to relax. Feel yourself grounded in your body, giving thanks for the moment that we are all here together. When you are ready, if you will simply open your eyes. All right. So I want to remind anyone who wants to know what the path is ahead. We are doing this as the home study course written by Walter and Lao Russell. Take a look at the schedule for July. If you need to, take a shot of this with your phone so that you have it handy. Tonight here on July 7th, as you'll see there on the screen in just a moment, you're going to see that tonight we're working on lesson 6. There's a delay in the imaging, so we'll give it just a moment. Oh, there's a big delay as it's all going back there. All right, so there we are, July 7th, lesson 6, unit 2. And for those of you who are seasoned students and following us along, you may want to take a picture of this so you know which lesson we're studying each week. For everyone else that's new, we invite you to get a copy of your home study course. Join us in. Happy July, Miss Verna. Welcome everyone who is with us here today. Now, we did promise you that we wanted to start with an inspiration of the week. And I'm going to ask the panel if they'll just respond to the issues there in the private chat box. The inspiration of the week is this idea of we wanted to bring back up a picture of Walter and Lao Russell. This is one of the favorite pictures, and I'm going to ask John if he would just comment on this, please. Where was this picture taken?
Well, that was the 200-foot pergola back on the third terrace of Swannanoa Palace.
Okay, so if we would.
So late May, early June, when the roses were in full bloom.
That is gorgeous. I want to just show you the picture of the palace right quick. And then we'll flip back and forth. So this is the palace of where Jim and John worked with Lao Russell. She's pictured there on the stairs. And so I just wanted to ask Jim and John, if you would comment on that picture with the roses, because that's one of my favorite pictures. It's so powerful and really such a testament to the beauty they were trying to bring to the world. Jim, John? right, Jim, you're on mute. Thank you.
Sorry, the roses, as you see them in that picture, were not fully present when John and I were there in the early 70s. That picture was taken when Doctor was still alive, probably in the late 40s to early 50s, would be my guess. And it was in much better condition then. By the time we came along there, a lot of things had deteriorated back there. Still beautiful, but it didn't look like that. So I can't give a clear. I can't honestly say I witnessed that. I did not.
Well, that's the beauty of photographs of being a timeless moment here. John, what do you want to say about that? Because even though it wasn't quite to that when you were there, you were present when they kept talking about working to bring beauty to the world. That was the inspiration behind Swannanoa, which is located in the Shenandoah Mountains of Virginia.
To me, I'll just put a personal note on that picture there. You know, for the world to see two cosmic conscious illuminates together, married as a couple, and to me, I don't think of a greater romance, a greater romantic story than them coming together, creating the University of Science and Philosophy, creating a private university and writing a curriculum to give to the world to save man from himself. So that epitomizes for me, it's like a reward almost of God rewarding them and surrounding them with that kind of beauty for their efforts.
I love that thought. Karen, you want to comment as one of the newer students, even though this was after your time? I'm going to ask Karen and then Ken to comment on what they see in this picture. Karen's on mute.
John, if I remember when I interviewed you, when they found Swannanoa, it wasn't always in perfect shape. Am I correct? And I think
correct.
They worked it together. Yeah, and the principle is God will be with you, but not for you. It was a testament to one that they actually put their sleeves up and went to work. This was not something that was just grace to them. It's something that they literally, heart and soul, worked together to make their place inside and out beautiful.
Yes, absolutely.
That was,
Swannanoa was abandoned for 20 years before the Russells found it. Broken glass and animals running through it, and the work. If the world only knew the work that had to be done to bring that palace to the level it had to be, so that it could be an example, testament to this message. It's a great story in itself.
I love that.
I think if I remember, they did a lot of their work, so it wasn't like they were being privileged, but they knew what they wanted and where they wanted to live.
Yeah, no, they did. There was a staff of 3 or 4. To give you an example of the level of work that Lao herself put into it, at the day of the grand opening, before she was able to come downstairs and give her talk in the beautiful gown that you'll see her in pictures, her legs were so swollen and so worn from the work she had done to restore the palace, she could hardly stand.
Wow.
Yet she overcame that, got dressed, came down, gave her speech, and spent the entire afternoon and evening in pain from the restoration work she had done for months on that palace. That's the kind of dedication that she had to this message. And nobody would have known that she was in pain. Nobody.
Wow.
She was just a joy.
Now, Ken, I know that you love the picture of them by the roses, and I was wondering if you could share with everybody, our listeners, before I say hello to our viewers, why this picture speaks to your heart.
I've been up there and sat in the corner where the picture's being taken from, and you can still feel them. I very much felt Lao for sure. Just to the left of where the camera left would be right now. And then I felt John Bonzel on the grass out front there, and there's a whole palatial grass out there. John and Jim doing their work. I can feel their energy. It's an energetic vortex. I found for me that I was able to feel their presence and feel John and Jim's presence, because I've gotten to know them so well, but Leo and Walter I haven't met personally, but I've read the work for 30 years, so I definitely feel very close to them, and so I definitely think that is a special. And matter of fact, that credenza right now is being repainted by Sam Spiker and reconstructed. He's trying to condition it back to as much of a state as he can. So a lot of work's going into it again, one more time, and it's still alive, is what I would say. It's just like, I think that's that eternal, when love is eternal, and the love that's been put into that palace and those grounds is still there.
All right. I love that. Love is eternal. And so we're going to continue with that journey of love here this evening. Thank you very much, James. And so I want to say hello and welcome to Linda and Karen and Rebecca. We have Dee and Susan and Margie. Welcome to everyone. And I know we'll have many others that are joining in. And so we're going to start off here with this lesson 6 in unit 2. And so, John, I'm going to ask you if you would comment on the title of this. If James will scroll down, you'll see the highlighted section of the title. And why is that title important? Because I did not want us to actually gloss over the title of this lesson.
Well, the Russells started with meditation and prayer, the two-way communication between you and your creator. But it's just not something that you gradually or you just kind of ease your way into. I mean, prayer is a really powerful thing. It's the most powerful thing in the universe. And so the Russells wanted to make sure that people got it right. And so that's why they lay it out scientifically. And they wanted people to know how prayer tied into meditation, how they're, it's the giving and the re-giving. So, and there's a process behind it. So that's the beauty of that underlined statement there.
Okay, so we'll continue with this. I want to be sure to pull up Karen's comment. Karen says, I visited there, mentioning Swannanoa from Arizona before it closed down. Loved it and could feel the beauty and got to see the sculpture of Jesus in the museum that was there then. What a gift, Karen. I'm officially jealous. So if we're going to ask Jim and Jackie, I'm going to go ahead and read the top. We'll scroll down to the top of page 84, James. There are a couple of thoughts there that I'm going to read the section that's actually highlighted, and I'd love for the two of you to comment. Prayer is just meaningless words if not felt in the heart, just as music is no more than sound if it does not reach the soul. Prayer to God is a realization that the soul of man is one, notice all caps, one, with the universal soul. It is not an appeal by man to God. It is a communion between the divine man to the divine God of man. And so there's more to that particular paragraph. That next sentence, though, and I really like it, says, but when prayer is but words, not coming from the soul, it is no more effectual than the hundreds of prayers written and distributed throughout the streets of Asia. Jim, if you could comment and then have Jackie chime in just about the impact of this first paragraph.
Well, I love the point that they immediately point out not only the divinity of God, which we all accept, but the divinity of man. And when you begin to approach your relationship with Creator as a divine source, a divine being sourced by that Creator, equal in every way to that Creator to the degree that we know we are, and that's important that we know we are, then you begin to see clearly what they're saying here. When you speak to God, most people do exactly what I said. They subjugate themselves. They go to their knees. They close their eyes. They beg for forgiveness. They tell God that they're a wretch and all these other things. And that's not prayer. That's complaining. That's belittling oneself. Prayer is when you go to God in meditation and deep thought with love in your heart, asking God to empower you through prayer to manifest on earth those things that will serve you and your fellow man. It's the epitome of love. It's creating God on earth. And that's a major difference than many of the world religions practice. And I'm not condemning the world religions. It's just they tend to pray to a God outside of themselves, even though every one of them talks about the God within. So If mankind, in my world, in my heart, if mankind can just make that one jump in the next 10 years to 100 years, whatever it takes, to begin to talk and meditate to the divine within, it will transform the world. Transform.
I love the sound of that. Jackie, you want to weigh in?
I don't know. I have to absorb all that.
That is perfectly fine then. I completely honor that. So I'm going to have
Really?
yes.
I'd like to comment on Jim's statement. The only concern I have about his statement is that if that were to happen, then God getting his 10% cut out, I'm not sure how that will go over.
All right. Is that an inside joke between the two of you?
Yeah.
No more jets. No more limos.
I'll make sure God gets his 10%.
All right, Jim, you self-repent. If you'll just awaken yourself, I'll pay your 10%.
All right. These two are cousins that go way, way back for a lifetime. So
Sorry, folks.
that is okay. We want to enjoy the love that's between the two of you too. Now I'm going to go ahead and move us here to the middle of page 85. And
Kim, can I jump in here very briefly
by all
on that?
means, yes.
On that joke, very briefly. In my studies and throughout my life, the 10% is referring basically to the 10% of brain that man currently uses. The other 90% he's not using. It's open and ready to be open. It's when you cross from the 10%, which is the body self predominantly, and you go in and know the spiritual divine self, then you multiply. Remember, every 1 percentage part upwards is 8 times. It's cubed squared, 8 times more powerful than a previous percent. So when you awaken that 90% that's asleep right now, and it's literally what's happening to humanity right now. They're awakening that 90%. Some quickly, some slowly, but it is happening. It's a transition, and wonderful things will come out of that.
Well, and that's what I think so many people are hearing when they learn of this awakening of humanity. Humanity is waking up to a larger truth of which we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask if John, if you would go to the middle of 85, and Ken, I'm going to be coming to you for more on page 86. But in the middle of 85, I'm going to read a section, John, and there's a story about a child. And I'm going to read, if you'll scroll up just a moment, perfect, right there. And it's right above where I have the red. It says, when your child prays for a long list of birthday or Christmas presents, ending with God bless Papa, God bless Mama, you tell the neighbors how cute that prayer is, and then buy everything the child wants to uphold its belief in prayer. It's not cute, you'll see in the red marks there. It's tragic. It's helping the child build its own selfish image. It is also helping the whole world build its own selfish, greedy image. It's helping to perpetuate this barbaric age of greed, selfishness, and fear of neighbor against neighbor. And then you'll see highlighted in yellow, when will parents teach their children that they must give love for love given them? John, as the former president of the University of Science and Philosophy, can you comment on that? Because that ties directly into why this home study course is called the Universal, speaking of universal law.
Yeah, that statement right there, it's not cute, it's tragic. And it's very tragic. You're just building a selfish human being that early in age. So what Leo would say to us is if that child in its prayer could say to God what they're willing to do to receive, whether it's gifts or other things, then that's the two-way flow of the universe. But it's, the I want this, could you give me this, without giving anything in return. And so the earlier we can teach our children, the only thing, and this is a beautiful quote by Leo, the only thing in the world that you can have is that which you first give.
Yeah. Well, and I want to bring some application to that, because I know Ken is always really big about application, because this is something I faced as a parent. So my daughter is now 26 years old. And early on, I began to see the materialism that was rampant. I would watch as parents and grandparents were giving children so much stuff, and I did not want that for her. And so I made we lived in the deep South then. And so we made a little rule for Christmas that she would only receive 3 gifts from Santa Claus. If 3 gifts were good enough for baby Jesus, 3 gifts were good enough for her. And that was how I applied this notion of practicality early in her life. And I watched it make a significant difference. So it wasn't that I was denying her. It was a matter of where I was trying to place the emphasis. Does that make sense to anyone?
Yeah. Very much so.
I witnessed just the opposite. I'll never get this image out of my mind. I went to visit my parents, and we went to a birthday, Christmas Eve, a function of my younger brother Richard's place. And the basement was so full of presents. The upstairs was so full of presents. They just had the one daughter. And all we did for almost 2 hours is sit there and watch this person unwrap presents and just set them aside as if it was nothing. And that's no message. That's no image to cheat someone. So that's the extreme of what we're talking about here.
I've lived through that too, John. And I think it's important for us to bring some of these practical things up, though, because the world is built the other way. I mean, even for all of us, the world is built for us to get stuck into that materialism and try to do things differently. And so, Ken, if you would comment on that as you begin to take us over here to the top of page 86, you direct us when you're ready, because I've got some things highlighted. But you are big on this notion of making sure that we don't get lost in materialism. You saw this actually happening out in LA. So before we go to page 86, that's where we're going. You saw the importance of having people shift away from that whole materialism.
Yeah. You know, of course, LA is it's the concrete jungle, just like Chicago and New York. I think any big cities are going to have, you know, I always talk to people and relayed what my belief system was, that do not measure the United States based on Los Angeles, Chicago, or New York, because the rest of the country doesn't work the way that the city does. And, you know, I think John was interesting, John, because my kid, when I would say till about 5, you know, we had a, you know, beautiful ranch and just a lot of stuff, but you know, it wasn't about presence. It wasn't about that kind of thing like John's talking about. I've seen that before. Matter of fact, I probably have had 1 or 2 of those in my day. And it, just like you said, it's like, you know, if you can't appreciate the purpose of it is to feel the love given in that gift and the thought energy that someone puts into thinking about you and what you might want and what would really work for you. And that's where to me, where the heart gets really warm. You know, and coming from the superficial, I worked with, you know, very high profile actors and wealthy people. And when you get to that kind of wealth, I was telling Kimberly that, I was like, so you look at your car out in the driveway right now, and when you first got it, right, first 90 days, man, that baby was, you know, just, to me, I know this, I call it the 90-day wonder. That's what superficialism is about. Lasts about 90 days, and about the 91st day, it's like, you know what? I think I need some new rims, or maybe I need to get a better radio, or, you know, it's just something more, because there's never enough. It's insatiable because it's so transcendental. And just like creation, it's not a created universe, it's a creating universe. And it's not, a present doesn't last forever, but the thought behind the present is eternal when it comes from love. Again, one more time.
I love that. I love that. And so as we think about, part of what I love about the Home Study course is it has us begin to rewire the way that we see the world. And so as we begin to go here to the top of page 86, I wanted to read just a portion of this and have asked the panel to comment. And it talks about how it's talking about a mother. And I'm going to go on to I have it starred where it says, all the sons of all mothers of the earth and to all things of God's creating. Her devout prayer can alone be answered in that way. But I want to go on to talking about having a mother pray for her son. When she prays devoutly, no matter how deep her sincerity in asking love from her mother's heart, then turns angrily and impatiently upon her friend or neighbor, or a servant in her house, this is from a way before, she herself voids her own prayer as though it had never been uttered. And so I put that little infinity symbol because for me, I've been talking about this balance of individual and collective for quite some time. But I wanted to ask the panel to comment about us voiding our prayers, because that's part of this whole notion, our whole notion of this idea that we can't say we're giving prayers and yet we utter the very words that void our prayers. Which one of our panel wants to chime in on that loaded question? All right, Karen.
The reason that sounds almost like Christmas, it's only for me, it's only for this moment, it's only for my son and for my selfish whatever. It's not addressing the collective. It's not speaking to the whole. So you can't just be asking for something special and then devoid everybody else as though they're meaningless. So it devoids the whole collective. And it tells you where your consciousness is at, and it's still not for the whole.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Thank you. Who else? John?
You know,
Ken and then John.
John, I was going to actually thought you might. John is done. I'd love to go to the bottom paragraph there and read that, because I think that's a beautiful paragraph that talks about the solution rather than the problem, right? So here, but JB's got this one, I'm sure. Go ahead and knock it out, John.
Well, what I wanted to reference about it ties into what we're doing here. As you become, as I refer to as a true Russell student, there's no turning back. And you can't open the door to hypocrisy anymore, because now you know the truth. You know, scientifically, how the universe works, how God thinks, how you think, is that door is open to, and now you know. And so that's the beauty. That's the beauty of what we're doing here, is helping people get through, give them a direction, give them a pathway, and free them from such things as what we're talking about here.
Okay. And Ken, where were you trying to take us?
The paragraph there about if the farmer would but stand in the midst of his fields.
So you're in the bottom of page 86. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. Okay.
There you go. And this is applicable to everything, right? And this is telling how what I'm gonna give in my heart. You know, if it doesn't come from the heart, it's almost like, for me, you can feel it, right? And so thus I always. One thing that I've been really gifted with is that I live a life today where if you tell me, hey, you need to do a better job, I'm going to tell you I'm giving 100%. I can't give any more. That's the way I live. And just like John said, once you cross this line, there's just no going back, because now you know, and therefore, you know, to know and then to do something different. I think there's something in the Bible that says that is real taboo. So, but in terms of that, if the farmer would just but stand in the midst of his fields, praying, saying unto them, I love you, my green fields. I love every part of you, every blade of grass, every root and herb and ear of ripening corn. I love every tree of you, each leaf of you, which gives love and oxygen for nitrogen given you in love. I love the fruit of each tree of you, and the red gold you give to me in your luscious fruit, for the love I have given to your roots. And it says in there, if we would just pray that way deeply from our heart, and that's really the bottom line, a heartfelt prayer is, you can't fool the creator. You just can't. You can't fool divine mind. So, and that's what I think we're talking about, those prayers of give me this, give me that, and give me this, and give me that. It's trying to fool God, and I mean it sincerely, protect my child, and then I'm going to go treat my neighbor poorly. Like, if I want my child protected, then I might want to look for someone else's child that I can help. And therefore, I'm trying to match that frequency and be in that frequency. Because if I can help that child, then somebody else's child, then I know that my child can receive help. And, whatever you give shall be re-given to you, whether it's through you or through somebody you care deeply about.
Imagine how the world would change if we did that. So I want to go back to the home study course and continue where Ken left us off, because there at the bottom of it, page 86, it goes into 87, and I actually started that. So if the farmer would but pray that way, deeply and in his heart, he would prosper as his fields prospered with him. Scroll down just a moment, James, just a little bit. And he would know no fatigue, for love given is not work. And there would be a light in his eyes and inner joyousness in his heart, which not but the manifestation of love given on earth, as it is in heaven, can ever give to man. So I want to go back to what I start about. Love given is not work, because I believe this is a distortion that I know I certainly suffered from early in my life. And so let's talk about this. And Jim, I'll ask you to weigh in first here as a lifetime Russell student. What does it mean, love given is not work?
Well, love, any work that is done with love in your heart for the purpose of manifesting just that love, it's so much. This is what's going on in my head. As we all know, in this area of the world, we've been in a heat wave. I go out every day and I give love, and believe me, I start my day every day in my bare feet, sitting in a chair in the front yard, looking at God's glorious mountains all around me, and thank God for the beautiful property that I have. But I also know that there's sweat and labor involved in the giving of that love. So I'm not fully there yet, because I'm in the process of transforming something that was neglected back to something that knows it's loved. But I understand the principle. If you do, and I catch myself in this, if I do find myself sinking into frustration as I'm trying to do some of these transformations, some of them I would have struggled with in my 40s. I'm doing them in my 70s. And when I stop and when I talk to God about it, the answer comes just so clear. Jim, do what you can do. And when you're tired, withdraw and rest. Then come back and do more. That has worked beautifully for me. So that's what I do. I might go out in the yard or on the property to work in the garden or the flower beds 6 hours out of the day. But this time of year in a heat wave, I also know that I need to spend a couple of 3 hours out of the day back in the house recovering. And then I commune with God, thanking him for the things that I'm accomplishing. So I can identify with that pure state of mind that people have, that's love, that work is love, and it most certainly is. But it's also work. And for those who go beyond that, great. I'm not there yet. And just to close that thought off, may I please remind everybody out there again that this is teaching you through meditation and prayer how to commune with the divine. So when you hear stories that we share, don't limit yourself to what we think we know.
Yes.
Communicate with God and get clarity.
I absolutely love that piece of wisdom. Love that piece of wisdom, James. And we have over 60 people with us here today. And I want to say a gracious thank you to all of you. Please tune into the love that is being poured into this container is exactly what this conversation, this broadcast is. And John, I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to go to Ken and then to Karen. But what does it look like? What does it mean love given is not work? Because it's really easy to get lost in this world, because this 3D world can get pretty heavy, and for some of us, we get lost when we have meals to cook and we have things to clean and we have tasks to do. How do you keep yourself centered where you're remembering that love given isn't really work?
Just one thing, and I'll shut up, John, I promise. John is a master, an absolute master of giving love in everything he does. He's a joy to watch.
Well, thank you, James. I was going to ask Jim to express the story of when he and I were working on in-ground swimming pools together. And I think that one story that he's going to tell you will demonstrate this, so that everyone can understand.
All right, this I'll keep this brief. We both built pools together back in the 80s, early 80s. And I would go to work with John. He would drive with me one day. I'd drive with him another. And we'd get on the job. And toward the end of the day, the sun is just like it is here. We're usually building pools in the summertime. And the sun is overhead, and it's in the south, and it's hot, and it's humid. And he had this ability. He just loves work. He just loves it. It's the doing of things just beams out of him. So I would come up to the edge of the pool, look down in the bottom of this pool that's freshly lined, or not lined yet. I'm sorry, the liner hasn't been dropped into yet. And he would be down in the bottom of the pool, smoothing sand with a trowel that you had to pack on the walls and cut so that they'd be nice edges increased. In that heat, in the middle of the day, at the bottom of a pool, with sand reflecting all that heat back on him, and he would be humming and carrying on and just enjoy. And I would look down there and I'd say, God, that's the last place on the planet I want to be. How's he do that? That's what I mean by he has mastered the ability to put love in his work, far beyond anything I've ever done.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Jen.
there's so many stories that we could continue with that, John, and I know that was certainly one of the things that inspired me when I first met you as president of the University of Science and Philosophy. So we have much more to continue. Let me just remind everyone who's with us. We have many folks that are with us from Twitter, from Facebook, from YouTube, and even from TikTok. We're getting ready to take our first break. So here's how this conversation goes. It's a 90-minute conversation. It's from 7 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. What we do is we take approximately a 3-minute break at each half hour. And so what we'll do in just a moment is we'll have a quote come up, and then we'll play some music. And if you want to take a stretch break, a bio break, or maybe just go out and say a thank you to some things that maybe you've passed and haven't said gratitude for here today, it might be a good time. It could be that you simply want moments of solitude to ground yourself where we're going. When we return, we'll continue to do another 30 minutes into this particular unit. We have a number of pages to cover here today, and then we'll have another break. And then at the top of that 90 minutes, we have a gift. We have Karen Elkins, the editor of Science to Sage, who has created a visual journey of this particular lesson, of lesson 5 and 6 from unit 2, which we will share and have everybody enjoy that. And then we have a Q&A at the end of our time together. And so be thinking about any questions that you have. And what's beautiful is that we have so many people online here at this moment that I'd like you to invite in the power of all of these people, all of the love that is here gathered. So before we take our first break, I do want to just remind you of an upcoming event that is sponsoring, that is actually featuring one of our panelists here. So Ken Pearson will be speaking on July 20th. We'll end up putting a link there in the chat box. And I just wanted to let you know that this will be available by Zoom. And Ken, if you'll just take a quick 30 seconds or so, you're speaking around using this message even in the world of addictionism.
Oh yeah. Balance is the key, and therefore it remains that for every one of us. Law doesn't change whether you're an addict, alcoholic, or you got issues, don't got issues. It's imbalance that needs to be restored if there's something tilting in your life, and the avoidance principle, which we talk about a lot, is finding that imbalance and filling that void with whatever it is that's imbalancing it. Because it's either, if it's a mentally, I'm just not thinking right, I'm in anguish, I'm in anxiety, I'm stressed about everything. Well, that's a mental imbalance and it needs a mental avoidance. If I'm physically not doing well and I'm keep working on on something that's hurting me and I keep hurting it, well, I need to take a physical action to restore balance, because balance is a normalcy that we all don't realize. When you feel normal and balanced, yes, the body has no needs.
Yes. So balance is normalcy, and I love that. And that's actually coming up with this particular lesson. So we'll put the link there. But for right now, it is our first 3-minute break. 3 minutes goes by really, really quickly. Enjoy the music. Enjoy the quote that will be on the screen. And we will see you all in 3. right, we have 30 seconds left. Coming just under that, you'll begin to find your way back. All right. So for everyone, we know those 3 minutes go quickly. We hope that gave you a moment to be able just to recalibrate yourself. Remember that you've got almost 200 years of Russell students and Russell wisdom here on the screen, and we came together for this particular initiative to help bring on new students, serve seasoned students, but focus on the book, The Man Who Tapped the Secrets of the Universe, and to focus on the home study course. So that is where we're at. And so for our panel, I'm going to refer back to the middle of page 87, and then I'm going to ask Ken if he'll comment on the top of page 88. But in the middle of 87, I want to just scroll down there, and it talked about, again, teach us how to pray. And I'm going to go down to where I want to mention that area that's highlighted in blue. It talks about he who knows of the light. Notice how light is capitalized. Really important when you're reading the home study course to notice the words that are capitalized. The of love in him does not beseech the Father, Mother of the universe. For his next breath, nor for his next heartbeat, for he fully knows that his heartbeat is one with the universal pulse. John, would you simply just comment on that? I was so profoundly touched. I've said this before, when the Russells would refer to Father, Mother of the universe, but I really love that whole thought of the universal pulse.
Well, this is a key point here, because there is only the 1-2 pulse beat of the universe. So whether it's your lungs with your breathing, whether it's your heart, okay, or whether it's basically the steps of creation, the compression and expansion. And that's what's the beauty of these teachings, is that they are so simple. And I'll repeat what I said before, that the Russell said that if you can read and count to 9, you can master the secrets of the universe. So, and as these lessons progress, people are going to be challenged a little bit, but I would ask them to fall back on that 1-2 universal heartbeat, because beyond that, nothing goes. There's only multiplicity of that 1-2 pulse beat. And I'll leave it right there.
All right. I was actually placing in the chat box right now that's actually why I opted to use the ocean sounds for this, because part of the profound wisdom, I believe, of all of these teachings is that everything we need to know is right there in nature. Very, very powerful there. Anybody want to comment on that before Ken takes us to the top of 88?
Well, I do want to, on the break, the music that was playing on that poster that was up on the break, the music was very relaxing. Just very 1-2. It was just perfect.
Okay. All right. All in the nudgings of all of these things. Now, we are halfway through our time together, so we're gonna move through and bring up a lot of very important things. And Ken, you felt the first 2 paragraphs of page 88 were very important. What did you want to bring up to everybody tonight?
You know, and I actually, can we go back to that one card, James, that we just had up? Again, teach us how to pray, and that paragraph just below that. I just wanted to point one thing out, which is every life should be a continuous mind communion with God. That is what this home study course is all about. It's not just a praying God. It doesn't mean you don't have a praying God, because we're talking about prayer, but it's about living life each day and each moment. The supreme goal is, for me personally, as I even speak right now, I can commune with my Creator, with God inside me. I can ask for guidance to help me hear what you'd have me hear, say what you'd have me say. And this is something I described before, that, you know, when I am in that state, and I continue in that state, I give it to people. I'm kind. I'm the, you know, my friend Jim Brown used to call, oh, here comes Casey, rah, 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 man. Everybody loves Casey. He's got all that energy. And I, you know, as he's trying to bag on me, and it was the greatest compliment I could receive, right? Because what he's saying is that God's always radiating, and that's what kindness is about. Why it's so important to smile. Why it's like, if someone's down, I'm not going to be a codependent and try and take over and uplift them, but I'm going to have empathy, and empathy is such a great word as opposed to sympathy, meaning I'm going to recognize that they're struggling, but I'm not going to feel like I can fix it. But I am going to maybe relate to them something that helped me to feel better about life. And like I said one time before, and I'll say it again, there was a time when I looked in the mirror and I couldn't look myself in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw. And it wasn't until I started this communion with God on a continual basis. And to me, my first mentor taught me, he was a mechanic and he would look at his clock every 10 minutes. So he'd always check in if he wasn't talking to God that 10-minute mark when he had the note for time for billing, right? He would go, God, can you be with me and guide me? If I have a disturbing thought or reaction, I'm sorry, God, I took it back. Can you be with me? Can you guide my thoughts? What would you have me focus on? I'm stressing about this situation. What are the assets? Can you help me to get out of the problem? This kind of constant communion and seeking that tapping into is what this is all about to me. Is a living relationship that's on. Ultimate goals. There is never separation. The measuring stick at the end of the day is how well did I do today? And so we'll go back to 88 here now.
I know we're going to the top of 88 here, but Karen, you wanted to comment before we read to that top section.
Yeah, because Walter Russell definitely always talks about natural law. And so I just want to punctuate the point of rhythm. These are sine waves. This is the way the pulse of the universe breathes. When you see, the nebula, they explode, it breathes in. And so everybody part of that, the ocean comes in waves. The currents that actually in your sky goes in waves. Your whole pulse is about the wave. And so by being one with it is actually feeling it and knowing it within you. And he speaks to that. And so it's embodied in you. It is you. You are one with it. I just wanted to punctuate that point. And that's being in love with it. That's why you can't just speak to it. You just have to feel it. You got to be it in the heart with it and to be in the rhythm with it. So that's my thought.
Well, what's interesting about that, Karen, is if someone will even pull up a voice memo that's on their phone, if you record yourself talking, you'll begin to see the waves, even in something as simple as a voice memo. Yeah. So, Ken, if you'll direct us to
brainwaves.
And brainwaves, absolutely. If you'll direct us to page 88, and then John, I'm going to be coming to you for page 89 in just a moment.
Okay. Yeah, in that first paragraph, I really like, where it's underlined there, there shall never, right there, from there, come a time when that which you need to manifest God worthily or divine worthily shall be denied you. For again, we say you already have that which you ask for, even as you have love and life for which you have not asked for, right? Think about it. Think about being here in this time on this planet. And did you ever ask for it? Now, a lot of us, I signed a soul contract and all that, but the reality of it is you didn't ask for it, right? But what you realize is the gift of life is to love somebody with all that you have. And it's not just somebody, it's like, for me, it's the car. I use the car scenario because I'm a guy, right? And when I go clean that car, you can have a detail guy clean my car. But when I wash and wax it and I walk away and I see that baby polished and shining, it's love re-given is how good it feels. And man, here's this car. It was dusty and dirty, and I get in and I drive it, and somehow after washing and waxing it and cleaning it all up and doing those windows, you can see through everything and everything looks good. Where it's like a new car. All of a sudden, I feel like my car's running better, and it's running. It is because I'm putting love into it, and it's giving me back love, which is that feeling I have driving a clean car, right? That's love re-given. So in terms of that, they relate this to breath, right? If you think about the 1-2 pulse, is also to think about that cycle. But again, remember when we do this 1-2 pulse, we're talking about a sense world. The 1-2 pulse is the division of the one, which is God united, right? God's united and divides God's self to create the art of the world. To me, I'll never forget, I think it was, I can almost remember the year, 2012, I'm pretty sure. I was sitting on my porch meditating and praying, and a bird rolled up on me on the porch and was sitting there, and I had this moment of clarity of like, wow, right? That's art. Think of it. Go look at a bird one time and think that's art. That's God's art. And that is true art, right? When you think about that God gene within, let alone those feathers, and just look at a bird one time and think of it as art. Look at a tree and think of it as art. We can look at a rose, but it is beautiful. But do I look at it as God's art? That's God's art manifested here in this sense world to help me to be in touch with that beauty of that rose is in me. It's not in the rose. The rose is a mirror, right? The rose is nothing but a mirror of what's inside me, and it's nothing but light because the rose doesn't fit in my eyeball. But I can see it. I can see the beauty in it. I can know the beauty in it. I can't see the beauty. That's another thing. We're talking about the difference between knowing and seeing. Those are two different worlds. That's what's so important to me. And then in terms of that, there's so much on here. I mark all.
Yes, there really is so much there on page 88. So
yeah, there's a lot there. To me.
All right. So John, because we're not even halfway through our lesson here tonight, I'm going to have you go ahead and take us over here to page 89. And you'll see that I've already highlighted some things. But where would you like to take us on page 89? So let me just mention a couple of things. I talked about at the top, talking about if a friend approaches you with a grievance, send love to open the door for him to you and say within your heart, Father, let my words be thy words to him, not mine alone. And then weigh his grievances on the scales of love, which I thought was such a poetic way to say it, and not let him depart unillumined by the light. Again, light being all capital. Void his grievance with your love. In so doing, a great happiness will descend upon you.
I think that's just a beautiful statement. I think it's self-explanatory, but I'll expand on it if you would like. Because, look, this might sound harsh to some people, but God is an emotionless essence. Man is the only one that has emotions, hormones that drive us to certain directions and so on. So if someone is grieving, it's because they feel loss. They've lost something dear to them. And for you to be able to neutralize and take away that grievance by telling someone that you understand, that you love them, then that can balance that grievance and then allow them to maybe move forward and reflect on some wonderful memories and that type of thing and let it go and move forward. That's how I would surmise that statement.
Okay, beautifully said. And I want to continue as we go down on page 89, because there were a couple of other really important things. Now, please know for everyone who's listening, please feel free to add your comments in the comment section. There is no way that we're able to go through everything on each unit, but we do spend time ahead thinking through things. And if we scroll down to the middle of page 89 here, it talks about this notion that rejoice. So it talks about, yes, right there where the brackets are. Rejoice that God, and remember, God can be spoken as creator, source, divinity, whatever is most comfortable to you, has illumined you with a light. Notice light is capitalized, of knowing what to do to balance your unbalanced beginning. Ken referred to that earlier. In your rejoicing is your power to take the first step of that far journey, which will be followed by another. And still another one, even as one breath forever follows another, until that far state is beneath your feet in answer to your prayer. And so Ken wants to bring us back to the bottom of page 88, and then I'm going to ask him okay, so as you're talking, if you can comment on this notion of the balance your unbalanced beginnings, and then take us to the bottom of page 89, Ken.
Yeah, balance your unbalanced beginnings means that if I go into a project, whether it's sweeping the floor or creating a script that I'm looking forward to maybe producing and trying to get produced as a movie, which is a big endeavor. If the minute I stamp it with mediocrity, I got to avoid that mediocrity, and the way to do that is to put love into it. So when I sweep a floor, you're not going to come behind me on that floor. My goal is to look back and look at the floor and look how beautiful it is, because before there was dirt and little stuff, And I just love to look at how it's been beautified. I put love into it, and looking back at it all nice and beautiful. Again, it's like the car. It re-gives me love. In the bottom paragraph, I'd like to go to, James, if you could scroll down there on 89.
We can. If you'll come on camera, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't see that. I was plugging. I got plugs all over the place. Okay. Anyway, I was talking into the camera, if anyone was wondering, just in case you were wondering. I was actually sitting here talking to a blank camera. I didn't know you couldn't see me. So anyway, this here, to me, in this paragraph, tells each and every one of us there is nothing, no limit to what you can do, right? You want, but you got to start. Your dream made to create a symphony. And this is a beautiful says, he who would become a music master and grieves because he has not the means to meet the years ahead to so become, already has the means to play the first note, right? Start with one note. I want a symphony, but it must start with the first note. And if that note is not struck with love, then the second note won't come to me. If it's struck with mediocrity, I'll feel like, I wonder what the second note should be. And that might take 2 weeks to come up with that. But when it's done with love, it's almost like a domino effect. When I strike that first note, the other notes come with that. And I can tell you from my own experience in life that I never played the piano. I never played music. But I love to listen to it, especially the Moonlight Sonata and that stuff, which I've actually been introduced because of this message to that type of 1-2 pulse music that John was talking about, which is classical, is that 1-2 pulse. If you think about Rockabye Baby, why does it put a baby to sleep? Is because it's the 1-2 pulse of the universe. Rockabye baby on the treetop, when the wind blows, the cradle will rock. Right? That's 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. It's not jazz like 1 2 3, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 5 6, or anything like that. So we all have that ability to hit that first note. So therefore, we say, he who takes his first gift from God and re-gives it to him, right? Hit that first note with love. The gift to be trickling to stream, a running brook, a mighty cataract, or of power ever ready to be given in the measure of man's ability to re-give equally. See, I can't. Now, I sat down on the piano and I played music within a week. I still play that tune to this day. It has variations because it's improvised, but it's music, and you can hear it, and you can hear me in it. And it's a piece that I've never heard. It comes from my heart. It comes from within me, but it's come from the love of the masters before me, and putting love, listening with love, like just like, when you listen to a classical piece, sometimes think of what was that composer hearing when they heard that piece, or any music that you love. Just think of that song and just stop for a second. That's almost a meditative way to go into it. It's like, what was they were hearing when they first heard that piece?
Beautifully said. And so I'd like to ask everyone who's online, we have quite a few people online, how many of you are musically inclined, or are you touched by the divine when it comes to music? We'd love to have you comment there in the chat box, because this is your time, your evening, your time together here. And I'm going to go ahead and take us over here to page 90. I'd like to try to get through 2 more pages before we take our next break. And I'm going to scroll down, have James scroll down. You'll see where I tried to put in that, you'll see where it says the Divine Iliad. That's just letting you all know that section that's underlined came from a book called the Divine Iliad. But if we'll scroll down to the bottom where it says misconception of prayer. And I want to read a section. I'm going to ask Jim and then Jackie to comment. And so realize, therefore, that prayer is not for the purpose of asking for something you wish to have. It is for the purpose of realizing that you already have what you have asked for. All power exists in the universe and is yours when you do your part in bringing it to you. Jim, what's something that we want folks to remember as they're seeking, as they're absorbing that wisdom?
It's a big step to go from a childlike attitude and ask God for things to an adult understanding of that divine and you are one. but we're all capable of it. We all be so. For me, sometimes I just don't have the words. When we work every day and we fall away from our oneness with divine, which Ken and John and Kim have all pointed out, it's not the falling away that can create a difficulty in your life. It's if we grow frustrated and angry and don't keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this means to me. It's that when I pray and commune with God and I fall away, in a younger me would have been angry with God.
Yes.
Believing and thinking that God has deserted me. It took decades before I realized and understood that no, I took my attention off my inner divine, my God source, and I stumbled as a result of it. And so it's just making that switch in your mind and doing it every day. Real briefly, this morning I'm sitting in our TV room with Jackie, and we talk and read and watch little excerpts on YouTube and share our thoughts on it. Most mornings, have our coffee. And I just sat and I just laid out my entire plan for the day to Jackie. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go in and get ready now to go get dressed to go do this. And as I'm saying that to her, life intervened. The cat walks in the room with a bird in its mouth and drops it at her. So my plans changed drastically because I spent the next half hour getting the bird, taking it out, Jackie holding it, me getting dressed, going out, putting the bird on a tree, making sure that it was strong enough to at some point fly. All the things I needed to do to show love and care, and not being angry with the cat for being a cat. Yeah. So that's working knowingly. That's understanding that things will come out of left field and change your day. But when you know your oneness with Creator, it will all work out if you hold that. Just hold it in your heart and being, and it is the most powerful thing in the universe.
Beautifully said. Jackie, anything you want to weigh in before I have us bring up 2 additional items?
Well, it might be going out all of them, but this is the world of motion or appearing motion. We're all just still photographs, just still shots of thought. And as we go through each step of the way, those things can be changed. We can take a different picture. And it's all there. It's all happening simultaneously, even each life, which I guess we'll get into that later. But that realization that it's already there. Why are you doubting that it isn't there for you? So, there's probably many reasons. I'll let them have it. Since there's only one left, they can have it. But then you can create another one. I don't know how many times people have done that. Like I've done it several times in the grocery store. I'm looking for something and they're just totally out. And I was like, no, they're not. There is one somewhere. So one time it happened where the actual product was between the shelf and the door of the freezer compartment. The only one that was there. And I didn't even see any. It was like it was just planted there for me. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And those little moments are remind me that the thought wave universe, and you can have what you want.
Well said, Jackie. Thank you so much. So grateful for all of you. Just a few thoughts here before we end up taking our next break here. We don't want to lose you. What we're doing is we're giving you time to absorb and allow and integrate what's said. I want to bring up towards the bottom of page 91, James. There's a quote on this particular page, and I have it there in yellow brackets. If you'll scroll down there, and it talks about, just stop right there. It says you already have all of the love of the universe. Prove what I say to you by giving love out from you. You will find that all of the world loves you in the measure that you love the world. When you thus give love out from you to all of the world, love will come to you from its far horizons. Talk about the power of that particular statement. And then I wanted to take us over here to the top of page 92 before we go over to our next break. And I'd like you to really tune in to the poetry of what is said, because that is one thing that really touched my heart with the Russell work. And it's talking about and you can stay right there, but it says, and he would feel the ecstasy of all the world at prayer with the God of nature. Notice that nature is capitalized. Should go out into nature's great cathedral of forest pines and oaks, enjoying in that mighty prayer of running streams and babbling brooks, and the singing of the birds, the buzzing of the bees, the droning of countless insects and hidden things that chirp and trill and sing hosannas to God in his high heavens, to gladden our hearts as we walk and talk with God. And then it goes on to the next paragraph to mention the Book of Early Whisperings, which when a student reached out to us at the University of Science and Philosophy and actually asked if they could do a video of it, I actually typed the entire book. And so that's another book that we would recommend, just about the power of nature. Any final comment before we take our next break by anyone who has a burning thought here on the panel? Okay, so let's pull up our next quote. And for anyone who's we're taking a quick 3-minute break. May you enjoy this music, take a bio break, stretch, absorb, even reflect in solitude and meditation if you'd like. We'll see you in 3 minutes. All right, beautiful ones. If you will find your way back. 3 minutes goes by quickly, does it not? Okay. So as we as we continue the conversation, John wants to bring up an important line on page 93. So I know we're getting there, John, but you want to bring it up now, and I know you have some wise reasons why you'd like to do that.
Yes, this line, because we've spent the last hour and so talking about love and beauty and giving and re-giving. So this line will be a measure for mankind and for our audience. And so is all the art of the world a
So
prayer.
scroll down, James. You're almost there. Yep, John, I highlighted that one too beautifully.
Yeah, there it is. And so is all the art of all the world a prayer for love fulfilled in inspired cosmic man, for re-giving of love to the race of man. For art is beauty, without which man is not yet even human. Now think about that for a moment. You can sit next to somebody. Say you're gazing at a sunrise or a sunset, or you might be in an art museum. You and another person might be looking at a painting together, and you're seeing the beauty, the art of it, and you're just in awe. And that person looks at you and says, "Is it time to go to lunch yet?" I'm just trying to say that if you cannot see beauty in the world and in things, then you got to do a little checkup from the neck up.
Check up from the neck up. All right, so that is a t-shirt phrase right there, John. Thank you. Check up from the neck up about where you're at. So just a couple of comments I wanted to bring up from the chat box, because some people are writing some beautiful things. So Deborah D. Tonkin, she talks about how music is in the background of my creative work. It gets me out of my intellect. Love that. And then Kathy, her comment was quite profound. Appreciate that so much, Kathy. You were talking about all the powers in the universe are yours to have. Use them, emanate them, for they are already within you. Most feel falsely separated, which is impossible, as you cannot be separated. Right along the line there. Karen, you mentioned how color and sound have not been my go-to until recently. That's certainly showing quite a bit of wisdom as it's unfolding. And then Dana actually said, brilliantly put truth, Jackie. We are all just still photographs or still shots of thought. So very, very powerful there. And Karen, once again at the end, said, so the electric and magnetic in nature seems like it is the giving and re-giving of love. Okay, before we continue, that is a loaded comment. Who wants to chime in from the panel?
That's a JB one there.
Well, Karen is right. And then when people can start associating which is electric and which is magnetic and which color is which, and then it'll all start to come together. So that's beautifully said. Because without that giving and re-giving, there is nothing. There is nothing. So beautifully said, Karen. Thank you.
So, John, I want to ask you, though, what is electricity and what is magnetism?
Electricity is the male endothermic compression side of the wave. The red side. The magnetic is the blue exothermic radiative side of the wave.
All right, John.
You think that magnetic meant to attract, when in reality it's to expand. Beautiful.
To repel.
Right.
Yes.
So, John, we're going to get a lot more into what you just said, into which unit. Do you know which unit of the head we'll be diving into that with? All right, let's just test our student as to approximately which unit.
Yeah, because the real science begins with unit 6. That's
Okay.
your transformation point. 5 ends the philosophy, and then 6 begins the science.
Okay, so can you say that one more time for everybody? Because what Karen wrote is very foreshadowing. That is where we're working to get you up to. So say it again. And John, I want to be sure to capture this very clearly for everybody so it's not a surprise by the time we get to Unit 6. And so for those of you who are not scientifically inclined, just close your eyes and breathe it in because it will make more sense as we go along.
Yes. So units 1 through 5 are the philosophy and the love and the groundwork to prepare you for the scientific part of the message, which verifies the living philosophy part of the message.
And so explain that electric and magnetic one more time, John.
All right. The electric side of the wave is the male, red, endothermic, compression side of the wave. The female is the blue, magnetic, exothermic, radiative side of the wave. Those are the two motions of the universe. And that sexed interchange between those two principles is what gives us creation. And of which, if there wasn't that, there would be no creation. There is no one thing. Males can't beget males, and females can't beget females, and males without males. And that's just natural law, universal law. End of story.
Okay, so we're not going to go too deep in that. I want to just have that captured here because what we do is our social media team actually comes back and gets clips, and that was a really, really important aspect there. All right, so let's jump ahead over here to page 90. We're coming down to the last 10 minutes as I'd like to give our panel some thoughts, our last few pages.
90, love, I think. Are you going backwards?
Oh, excuse me. So, well, yeah, we John had to skip ahead. So I'm going back to where we were right there at the break. So I would like to go back to 91. Thank you. Let's go to 91, James. And I wanted to highlight just a couple of things. So 91, yes, I see highlighted balance and perfection are normal. And Ken, I wanted you to briefly comment on that before I go down to the next section on the bottom of page 91, because that's really what you're talking about, how balance and perfection are normal for us.
Yeah, you know, that's a real awakening statement, is to think about it. When you're comfortable, you have no bodily needs, right? If you've eaten a meal, you're not cold, your body's in a good temperature, you know, you have no bodily needs. You go outside and it's cold and your body tells you, hey, put a jacket on, it's cold out here. But that's a sensed input. That's not a knowing. That's not the mind, that's the brain talking, the bodily needs. So, you know, what this is telling me is that our lives are supposed to be in balance. That doesn't mean that, as John just said, the pistons are not going to thrive, which are compression, expansion, which could be electric, magnetism. That's the pistons of life. So when we want to create things, we are moving that teeter-totter, if you will. Kimberly's got a beautiful little seesaw, her white seesaw. I don't know if you have it in there, but it exemplifies that power, right? That centering triangle. If you look at that is your creator, my creator. That is what I would call God. And the teeter-totter is the male on one side and the female on the other. So both, when they're working in conjunction, start to create. That's how creation happens. But normalcy, even on a seesaw, if you think about it, there you go. It's in a balanced state. That's its normal state. You got to put somebody on there to imbalance it. You got to put a weight on there. But if you just leave it, it's normal state. Even with two people on it, if you want normalcy, you'll reach a balanced state. It's abnormal, right, to just stay there without, you know what I mean? It gets uncomfortable. The person on the bottom's like, you know, you better not jump off because the person on top's going to hit the ground, right? So we realize that normalcy is to be comfortable, is to be happy and usually whole. That's a normal state. That's the intention of our lives. So if we're not happily and usefully whole, we're in an abnormal state. It doesn't mean that we don't grieve and suffer, because that is also countered by happiness and joy, right? Each balances the other. My capacity for grieving and suffering is matched by and also ignites my capacity for happiness and joy. The two balance. So if I don't want to grieve, I'm not going to really know happiness and joy. In other words, something bad happens and I just stuff it. well, I don't realize I'm also stuffing joy and happiness. They go together.
Okay, very powerful. And so I do want to skip ahead to page 93, and I want to remind us all about why this particular channel is called Awaken Your Inner Genius. And so if we'll skip ahead to the top of page 93, you're going to see where I've actually circled right there and a highlighted set, and it says the geniuses of the world manifest God's love and give it out from themselves to uplift the world by re-inspiring man of earth with the inspirations of heaven-born men. And so I'm going to ask Jim and John and Jackie just to comment. You, the three of you, played a role in reopening of the museum in Waynesboro, Virginia. And part of this is you wanted to uplift the universe. You wanted to uplift and re-inspire the man of earth. And that's literally what Walter Russell was doing. Why is someone who is listening to this particular conversation and we're suggesting to them to awaken their genius, why is it that they can be inspired by the life of Walter and Lao Russell?
They're pointers of the way. They're showers of the way. They're people that have had the experiences that we will at some point have. Their reference to it in many biblical books refer to it the same as being in the light, illumination, a mystic, Brahmic bliss. All of these terms are used. They've experienced it, and they're trying to ease our way forward by making us aware that that same potential exists within all people. The opposite of that is what John has called for years, and I've always loved this statement. I wish I'd have made it. The opposite of that is not living the love principle, and he calls it the misdirection of idea. What?
Desire.
Of desire. Pardon me, my wife corrected the misdirection of desire. So you're always creating or you're decreating. Neither one is bad or evil. It's either balanced or unbalanced. The end result is that each balanced thing teaches love and multiplies love. Each unbalanced thing gives you the opportunity to know unbalance and harm, destruction, pain, and suffering, so that you will go back to love. Ultimately, love will always win out in every situation. So it's a wonderful system we're living in, because it gives us the opportunity to be wrong, make mistakes, make misjudgments, and to be forgiven and be loved again, and then give love. So it's a wonderful thing, a wonderful gift that they've given us here.
So well said. Jackie, you want to add to that before I ask John to comment, and then I'm going to go to top of page 94?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. A gracious thank you. John?
The beauty of that statement is that geniuses of the world, which are not being recognized today, they're not being allowed. I mean, when's the last time you saw a great artisan or a composer or a pianist or a violinist get primetime attention, right? It has no value. There's no value in it. But the genius mind gives to give and not expecting anything in return.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's love. That's love right there. To give, not expecting anything in return for the betterment of humanity.
Can I just say one thing on that? On 93 there, not on that, what John was saying, but the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph there, the workmen there. Can we go down to there? So this is to everybody, right? We keep hearing the word genius and mystics and illuminates. This means that doesn't mean that you have to be a famous painter or musician or do something of the five art. There is art in everything, and this paragraph to me illustrates that. The workman at his bench who gives beauty to his work gives the love which God has given him to all of the world to uplift the world, right? By putting love into his work, just like Jim was referring to in the pools that John were doing, excuse me. Likewise, the JJs. Likewise, the housewife. This is really important, right? This is so important because I just don't think enough mothers and women who enrich the home, who puts love into their cooking, enriches the food. See, love given to food, you feel it in your soul when you eat it. You're not just tasting your sense buds, you're tasting love. And that's, oh my God, I love this. I love this. It's like, that's the compliment to the chef with God's love, which renourishes her family with love, where the family feels good. My mom is the best cook in the world. Likewise, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, who give love for love given to them to manifest God and building his universe of love with him, also uplift the world. So it doesn't matter what you do. When you put love into it, you are uplifting the whole world, because that's what it means. We're all one. And when you hurt one person, you hurt every person. You help one woman or man, you help all women and men. You hurt one woman or man, and you hurt all women and men. It is that important, to the point where it's going to be described where you move your little finger. Well, that's my big one. You move your little finger, and the universe must move with you. We call that the butterfly effect, right? Everything touches every other thing. And the best way that I can describe that is to talk about the ocean, right? And let's say a man is a sailor and he's been on the ocean for 20 years, and you bring him to land, or a man or a woman, and they come to land, and then all of a sudden they get what's called land fever, and they want to get back on the ocean. Well, they're not born in the ocean, right? Anymore. We came out of the ocean a long time ago, but the ocean has patterned them, and they have patterned the ocean. That's why they feel secure and safe and are more comfortable, because each has become the other. So, and that's what it means when we say scientifically everything is trying to become every other thing, meaning we're patterned by everything around us, the environments. And so if you dismiss it or ignore it, then really your life can really take a wrong turn. But if you think you're born of something, you realize I've been patterned by something. And that is that illustration of everything. The speed of 186,000 miles per second is not the speed of light. It's the speed of reproduction. Everything is reproducing itself, and every other thing at the speed of 186,000 miles per second.
All right. So much to unpack there. And if you're listening, we'd love for you to drink in some of this wisdom. And so we only have a few more minutes as we're wrapping up the official portion of this course. So be thinking about what your questions are. But I do want to go over here to page 94 and bring up a couple of things. If you'll look there at the first area where I actually have the bracketed, it says, those cosmic ones who know God are the cosmic thinkers, inspired geniuses, and illumined mystics who know God, the divine within them, and see God everywhere. These are the ones who down the ages have uplifted man gradually by bringing the beauty into the world, which has gradually given man his culture and ethics. So this is why we opted to show the picture of Lao and Walter Russell at the beginning with this issue of beauty. I want to scroll down a little bit more down to the star section. And it talks about the coming cosmic race of men. So for everyone who is listening, to whether you are listening right here with us tonight or at any time in the future, you are part of this cosmic race of men. The coming cosmic race of men will know that love is all there is in God, nature, and that the expression or manifestation of love is all there is in the nature of the physical universe. Very, very powerful. And if we would go ahead and scroll down to the bottom of page 97, which is the end of lesson 6 here. And I wanted to bring up just a couple of things to the group. You'll see there's so many more things that we could cover. But right now, to end with our particular section, I want to mention a couple of things. Scroll up just a little bit, James. If you'll see, it says right there, it says the practice of the love principle of first giving. And you will find that you have not sacrificed anything. Instead, you have enriched your life in every respect. Sacrifice gains you not, nor helps another, and very often hurts. If you give with love, you have not sacrificed. For love will be regiven to you in equal measure. And if you'll scroll down, and you can take a screenshot of this to read to it later, but the very last line in this lesson, and John, if you'll have a final thought as we wrap this segment up before we show Karen's visual journey. Karen had some technical difficulties tonight, or she would have commented more, is this. The most important thought is the God of love is all there is in the kingdom of heaven. And the manifestation of love is all there is on earth.
Can't say any better than
Amen.
that.
Amen to that. Thank you for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm still good right there, baby.
John. All right. So,
That's stamped. Nobody's gonna beat that. You cannot beat.
so if you would go ahead and just enjoy that as you're drinking it in. It is time for our next break. Do know, for those of you that want to stay on, we are going to run a visual journey right now that Karen so lovingly pulled together for all of us. We will play this at this point in every week all the way through July. As you listen to it and as you read it, you'll begin to find that you're understanding more and more, because the dawn of your awakening in this day of age of cosmic man is happening day by day, week by week, hour by hour. Enjoy this visual journey, and we'll be back for our Q&A. Welcome back, everyone, as we have our teammates come back on camera here, and want to say a gracious thank you to Karen. Karen Elkins is the one who does that gift for us. I believe that she is a conceptual genius. That's part of why she is on this broadcast with us. Even though she has studied the Russell work for 13 years, this is the first time that she's gone through the home study course. And so we do that each week in hopes that you will enjoy the visual journey. And so what we'd like to do now is open it up for Q&A. We have a student spotlight that we'll do at the end of our Q&A section. But we want to open it up for any questions that you might have. This is a journey that you're going on with us, and we wanted to have you take a look at this particular image. And anytime that you see an opening of a door in any of our materials, it is very representative of what the Russells talk about, opening the door to this cosmic age. And so I just wanted to ask, John, if you'll just comment, what would be a good thing anytime they see this kind of a door image or a door opening with the Awaken Your Inner Genius initiative that we have going on? What do you want them to remember from what Lao Russell used to say about opening the door?
Well, have no fear. Fear is the great inhibitor to the path, the light. So when you see that door, you don't know exactly what's on the other side of it. But as you gradually walk towards it, you should feel an awakening. And you should have this like, oh boy, what's coming? I can't wait for the next level or the next whatever. So it's a beautiful image. And so that's what God is saying to you right there. The door is open. All you got to do is walk through it. It's that simple.
I love that. I love that. So let's open it up for any questions. So while we're waiting for some questions from those of you that are signed on, we have a lot of people online with us today. Anybody on the panel, do you have a question for anybody else on the panel, or even a question for our viewers here today?
I want to say one thing about what you said about Karen in terms of going through this home study course for first time. I think it's a great exemplification of why you don't need to feel overwhelmed about what's coming and what we're doing. Even though when we get to this science part, it will make sense. You do not have to be a scientist to be able to relate to it and comprehend it. That's the way it's been written. So it's written in the simplest terms, just as the seesaw is so understandable when you get the idea of realizing what that means. And that seesaw is it, you can use that example on every scientific thing you'll see. Is just like John said, you will see that male-female interaction in any of the science stuff. So don't let it confuse you. And don't let the home study course overwhelm you. It is a building process, but the rewards that you will receive from it are just like Mr. Bonzo said. Once you cross a certain point, you're never going to want to go back. You'll just keep going forward, and there is no finish line.
There is no finish line. That's a great deal of wisdom. So waiting for some other questions to come in. Any questions from the panel that you want to ask our viewers or each other? Yes?
I kind of want to remember that when Dr. Russell wrote his universal one, and he wanted to give it to all the scientists, that genius, that spark that came through him, he wanted to share so bad, yet he was told by that still inner voice not to give it out until he met his mate. So he didn't listen. But it's kind of like, if you do something and you're so excited that you created something, or you're so excited that you got this information that you just had to share with everybody, it's hard to hold that back. And because of the way everybody thinks, the majority of humanity thinks, then they start getting the greed factor into all that. But anyhow, I can be more forgiving of Walter Russell for letting that stuff go too soon, because now, I understand.
Yes. Yes. Well, we'll talk more about Walter Russell's illumination. That is the main topic for next week's session. is Walter Russell's illumination and all that goes along with it. So we'll dive into more of what Jackie had to say there. But we do have a question on the screen. So Karen, thank you very much. What would be the difference between prayer and intention? Are we asking or creating or both?
Or both is the answer. You're asking God to give you clarity on how to manifest that thing which you desire. That's what you go into meditation for. In the asking, you come to know that it's already yours. It truly is. It's done and complete. When you see it complete in your mind, then you can go forth and manifest it to the exact degree of love and work. Love is work that you put into it. We all see that. And the beauty of the genius is they have reached that state of love and work as one thing in their thinking that they give so much effort to giving their gift to the world. They don't do it for personal profit or fame. They do it to give to the world. And I hope to be one of those one day. I really do.
Very powerful.
I think the intention comes before prayer, Karen. That's a great statement, right? Because that's what I was trying to say is you can't fool God. So if your intention is self-oriented through prayer, what we're seeing is your prayer, you might as well, it's sand before the wind, right? But if your intention is pure, that's what meditation is about, is getting into that pure intention, realizing that the state of God's mind, and this is a hard concept, but if you just keep thinking about it, right, to be creator of, and to be, in other words, to create such beauty abundantly, you have to realize that I have to realize that God comes from love, and therefore there's no fooling love, right? And God's state of mind is a perpetual state of ecstasy. Like when you love something and do something with love, you feel ecstasy. Now, ecstasy is a beautiful word used often throughout the home study course, and it means exceedingly content and fulfilled. And it even is stated by the Russells that is the state of God's mind as a perpetual state. That means never-ending state of ecstasy. So sadness and grieving and suffering. And one of the best ways I've heard that's in the home study course is described is to say, think of creation as a cosmic play. And God's written this cosmic play. And so when one of those characters in that play falls and hurts themselves on their knee, the writer doesn't feel sadness because it's a part of the whole story of creation. Just as when someone's elated, though, the beauty of that love is that does connect to creation, because that's the source of what motivates this universe, this creating universe that we live in, is the desire to express love. Just like the desire to express love to clean my car. So you think cosmically. So, but thinking of just when I go into meditation, the intention is to align myself with that perpetual state of ecstasy, knowing that that's the state of God's mind. And it's really easy to do for me because I just think of something I love. I have to be in that state of love. And we all know when we're coming from a state of love. I love you, God. I love your beauty. I love what you created. I love that I get to manifest in this life. I love of my life sitting here on the line. I love my dog, and I was going to say another thing. If you have a pet and you think about how much you love your pet, have you ever thought about how much love your pet gives back to you, right? In exchange for the love you give your animal, no matter what it is. And that is nature. That's why nature. Does your dog ever take from you besides your slippers? But you know what I mean? It just wags its tail and you forget about it because you love it so much. So the dog isn't really taking your slippers. It's just doing what it normally does and wants to chew. It's not a taking thing. But if you think of your animal wags its tail every time you come home, wants to lick you, and wants to be next to you every time it sees you. Nothing but love. Love given. There is no ungiving from an animal. So I think that's a great parallel to think of if you have an animal, of how much love is re-given back to you. I have a little Shyla. I can't, man, the God that has come back out of her and the love that has come back out of her and the love inside of me towards her, it's ecstasy. It really is.
John, you wanted to comment on Karen's thought? And then I have
did.
another question coming from one of our technical producers.
What I wanted to, and this was a learning lesson for me too, is that if you're going to take the time to enter into prayer, make it worth your while. And what I mean by that is that if there is something that you are desiring, if there is something that you want to create, give the details. Try to be exact in that which you're asking for, because guess what? God is going to give you exactly what you ask for. So try to be specific in your prayers so that there's no gray area to where you're going to doubt God and say, oh man, I asked God to do such and such. Well, if you left out the details, you got exactly what you asked for. So go back to the drawing board and start over.
Okay, that's a very interesting perspective, John. I love that. So James, who is our technical producer for this, but also a graduate of the Russell Experience, a program that we ran at the museum a few years ago, and also just a young father of 4. James, what is your question of the panel?
All right, so I'm going to play a clip from last week's episode. And Jim, you said something, so I have a question about something you said. So I'll go ahead and play that clip, and then I'll ask you the question. And hopefully the audio comes through.
All right. James is working on it. No audio yet.
No, it doesn't play. Okay.
Just
well, I'll just
it's there, but it's low. Yeah, no.
Okay, so hopefully you could hear that. It was the last part that you said there, Jim. Could you expand on that a little bit? The idea was that your thoughts could not be sent up to the divine. They must be recorded in you, because that could not there cannot be an imbalance in God or the divine. So it must be recorded in you instead of sent up to God. So could you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I've touched on it before too. In the wave cycle that you'll learn as you go into the sciences, there are steps to pure divinity as you build the body. The first step is 1 male female, 2 male female, 3 male female, 4 male female in balance, which is I and the Father are one divinity. So as you send a thought out or a desire, if it's not pure and in balance, it's going to be recorded in nature at the frequency that it fits, and it will remain there until the proper time and place for you to come back and balance it in your thoughts and actions. Nothing is ever lost to you. No opportunity is ever lost. Every thought that you create is a living entity, and it wants to be fulfilled and balanced, and it will be parked in nature somewhere until you return to balance. That's what karma, dharma, they're all about. That's so. In essence, the imbalances of our thinking don't affect the absolute balance of divine thinking. They wait patiently in nature for us to return to them and balance them. They're our children. Our thoughts are our children, and we must love, raise them, and balance and fulfill them. That's what I mean by that. It's not you can't unbalance God. You can't do it. All things are balanced as they happen in the divine, instantaneously, and they're stored or balanced by the person that issued it. I don't know of another way to say it.
Yeah, I just never heard anybody say it like that, and it was interesting because it made me think that we have a responsibility even to our thoughts. It's like a heavy responsibility, and most of us are quite irresponsible with our
Well,
thoughts.
it's not. Keep in mind, it's not a punishment. It's an endless opportunity to correct something and make it love. If something comes out of you or happens that is not registered as love, you have eternity to set it straight. Dr. Russell says it in his day and night thing. He says something along the lines of, should I rend the day, I will build 10 times 10,000 new days to undo the rending. That's the eternal you in eternal.
I rend the day, I create mayhap 10 times 10 to undo the rending.
So you always will. It's not, and when you go back to undo that rending, it's not a punishment. It's an opportunity to take what was perhaps not enough understanding of the love nature and correct it when you have a higher understanding. I think it was page 92 at the bottom where God was, or the Russells referring to God, talking about that very subject. that God is speaking to all of us all the time, absolutely complete and whole. All of us, even those ones that we would consider lost, even those that are not hearing it, the message of love and balance is there. So it's when they attune themselves to their inner divine that they become aware of what it is that they were doing that was not helping them. And the most difficult thing to deal with in life for me is the fact that not knowing when I'm lost. When you don't know that you're lost and you keep moving forward, it can be frustrating. And that's why this meditation and communion with your divine is so important, because that will awaken you to it. And guess what? You're going to hear me point this out throughout the course. Your divine and God's divine are one and the same thing. Your degree of awareness of it may not be that which God's is, but it's one and the same. And when you send love out to people around you through voice and action, you're sending love into the soul seed of all those people that don't know love. They're still receiving it from within, and it's being whispered to. So don't underestimate the power that you as an individual have by giving love to the world. You are literally, who's the guy that holds the world on his back? Atlas.
Yeah.
When you give love, you are literally Atlas supporting the world.
So,
Awesome.
James,
Jim.
you introduced a really important concept here. And Jim, I want to thank you. Our thoughts are like our children. So our thoughts are children that we literally birth out into the cosmos. So
Yes.
if in this lifetime I have birthed, because of my family upbringing, a lot of thoughts of shame, unworthiness, disdain, self-dislike, self-loathing, any of those kinds of things, that was what my early life recorded, then the way I balance that in this life and others, my eternal cosmic journey, is more love, more self-love, more giving of love. That is what you're saying?
Yes, and forgiving. That's what it means to forgive yourself as you. I always stop to point out to people because I missed it for the first 40 years of my life. God, forgive me my trespasses as it's an active word, as I forgive those who've trespassed against me. You can ask for forgiveness all day long, like the kids asking for the gifts. You're not going to get that forgiveness until you're able to give forgiveness. Then it voids each other out and you've lifted.
So what you're saying, in effect, is that forgiveness is a scientific principle.
Yes.
Okay, so this is really, really important, because I want to just remind everyone about what this home study course, the title of it is Universal Law, Natural Science, and Living Philosophy. And so, John, as we're beginning to wrap up and I'm going to share the student spotlight, can you please just remind everyone why that's so important? Because that's in all caps at the top of our home study course. And literally, when we talk about forgiveness is a scientific theory, I mean, why is this course called those three things?
Universal law, natural science, and a living philosophy. You want me to expand on that?
Please.
Well, the beauty of these teachings is that it gives you something to live for, and it gives you something to live by. Okay, it's a manual. It's a manual on how to discover your own divinity, and then what are you going to do with it? That's how I see it.
Okay. Okay. So we have
I
one
would like
last.
to add a little something to that. And that is that, you know, you go to churches and other facilities and people are looking up and, you know, and I've learned from this way of life and from this, incorporating this philosophy into my life, awakening my own connection with my creator, which I choose to call God. And in terms of that, you know, when you look on the ceiling, I always wonder what ceiling tile is God on, James, right? God is within. There, and God didn't give a thimble full to me and a bucket full to Bonzel. Actually, it'd probably go the other way. A bucket full to me and a thimble full to Bonzel. Nah, I'm just kidding. Right? It is all the same amount. We all have the same amount of divine divinity within us. And Jim has said that over and over. I know it's hard to hear sometimes the way it's structured, maybe, but the reality of it is God's not on the cloud up top or on a tile. God is within. Divinity is within. And so that's what it means when recording. I'm recording divinity within. Forgiveness is not something any one of us can give ourselves. We can learn to love ourselves. But as it says in that prayer, as I forgive those who trespass against me, but you're asking God to forgive you, you're not forgiving yourself. Even though God is within. A human being cannot forgive themselves, but they can forgive others. And think of us, how many of us harbor grudges or resentments against others, not realizing that's like drinking poison, thinking you're not going to get sick. Right? You cannot hold resentment or harbor a grudge against someone and think it's not going to poison you, because it will.
Okay.
I've done many things in life. And so therefore, I live forgiveness for everybody. I must forgive. That is my code. My code of ethics is I will always forgive you, because that's the law I've had to learn to live by, because I live in knowing that I need to, I'll be returning that forgiveness. But I will say that I've also learned that learning to love myself has been an education process too. That's an application. When I talk about application, and I have to ask God, can you help me, show me how to love myself, God, for who I am and what I've done and where I've been, and help me to connect to that love inside of me for who I am, what I've done, for better or worse. Teach me how to love myself, right? That's a learning curve. Just like learning how to love someone is a process. It is not done overnight. You can have that instantaneous connection, but it is a building process to demonstrate that instantaneous connection. So again, forgiveness is something that I've learned I must give as a way of life, and then I'm re-given that forgiveness, which, you know, I make mistakes all the time. So it's not that I live in shame. Don't get me wrong. I let that go a long time ago by living a better life. But I do know that a human being cannot forgive themselves. I don't believe. That is my belief. And I also know that Walter and Lao talked about there's nothing that they've done that we cannot do. That's a hard concept when you go walk in that museum and you see just a fifth of the artwork that this man and this woman have done. And to think that what they're saying is the works we do are nothing to the works that ye shall do. It's in the very first statement of purpose where it said, we hope that we want you to take what we've gotten and go that which we could not ourselves go.
Yes.
So they're already telling us that rule.
Yes. All right. So many good comments and questions. And so please know that we'll take on our other question. We'll bring this up again for next week. For any of you that are watching this video at a later date, please know we still check the comments. We still check the questions. So please offer your questions there. What we plan to do as we move forward is we will occasionally have flashback to previous units, flashback to previous questions. This is an ongoing conversation that we're having. As we wrap up here today, though, we do want to do a student spotlight. And so I'm going to ask John to comment on this in just a moment, but I wanted to highlight, and this is one of our students that's actually online with us today. It's Deborah Tonkin, and I'd like you to take a look. I have been so inspired by this woman and Russell student here. Talk about co-creation. I have watched her over the past 6 months take the learnings that she's had from Walter and Lao Russell, and she herself illustrated and wrote these 2 books that you see on the screen. They are available at Amazon, and we're going to place those links in the chat box. But more more than that, you're going to get a sneak peek tonight of a new trilogy that she has geared these children's books. They're for children and all the way up to adults as you're reading them, but she has 3 more coming out, and we want to show you those covers. And so take a look. This is going to be for release on July 19th. Lantern of Light, all based on the learnings of Walter and Lao Russell. Take a look at this next one, The Heart of Light and Balance. And then this next one, I believe, is one of my favorites yet, The Unbroken Wave. And so to celebrate this, I want you to see all 3 slides, all 3 book covers are on the same screen. If you'll go to the next one, James, and you're going to see what this lovely, lovely grandmother has created, because she herself has been so inspired. And so as I have watched her over the past 6 months do this, I wanted to mention that the panel came together, and Karen, actually, we crafted a gift for Dee. She does not know what we're doing here this evening. I'm going to ask James to show it, but I wrote an article about Dee and we submitted it to the AARP. No luck yet in it being published, but we did create a document for Dee that she'll be able to use and we can update later. And this was created as a gift from Karen and I as we were working through this, and the panel as wanting to celebrate you. And so as James pulls this up, we hope you're delighted, Dee. James just going to flip through this, and we want to spotlight students as much as we can on what you're doing there. And so James will just flip through the PDF book there, and we want you just to see that this is the article that was written about Dee. You can't read it here. We'll end up putting the link in the chat box, and so just flip through the pages there. And we were wanting to honor Dee and her work, to bring the work of Walter and Lao Russell to children in a way that their parents would be inspired about the learnings of Walter and Lao Russell. And she
doesn't Dee create with Allura, my dear? I think she creates with a granddaughter, doesn't she?
She does. This is all inspired by her.
It's her and a granddaughter.
It is inspired by her granddaughter, and you'll be able to read the article that's in this PDF. So we're going to drop that in the chat box. And Dee, we simply wanted to say graciously celebrate what it is that you're doing. And hopefully you'll enjoy this gift. And John and Jim, I just want to ask if you want to comment. That's really something that Walter and Lao, and what Lao would say, she wanted students to take the message and then carry it on. Did she not?
Absolutely.
She did. There you go. A messenger. So the Russells have reached this beautiful lady, and now she is doing her part in delivering this message of love to the world and exemplifying it. So well done. Well done. And I think it's wonderful that we've acknowledged her gift.
Yes.
Her gift to humanity.
Yes, and we wanted to extend the offer. I'm going to place my personal email in the chat box. And for any of you that are students that are out there doing things to be able to continue spreading the message, please reach out to us so that we can continue to celebrate you. Everything that you have here in this Awaken Your Inner Genius are students themselves that are working to continue to spread the message. And we simply want to celebrate that co-creation moving on and on. And so Dee, may this be just a celebration of you as well. Last reminder here, we want to remind you that next week we will be continuing our conversation. We will be focused here on lesson 7. So we're going to be doing the first part of lesson 7. That is part 1 of Walter's illumination. If you'll go back one slide, James, I'm going to mention 2 other things. We will have, there's a Tesla conference that Karen is speaking. I'm going there to support her in August. And so we wanted you to have that as well. And next week, we're going to have a graphic facilitator. She's going to join us for the conversation. We'll see how she's inspired to be able to create the art and the beauty as we continue. So what a powerful time together. Any final thoughts from the panel as we wrap up here today? Yeah. You mean the panel is quiet? That's a shocking thought.
I was going to end in a small, quiet little prayer.
Please.
I was going to say, Heavenly Father, please forgive Ken, for he has sinned. He knows not what he does. He knows not what he says. but if you'll forgive him in his adventure. No, I'm just kidding.
Goodness gracious, John.
You did
I
that-
thought he was going to talk about my golf game. I thought he was going to bring up my golf game, man. I didn't think he was going to bring up my philosophy.
All right, John, there's leaving us with cosmic laughter here at the end of our session. I want to say a gracious thank you to everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your love. And thank you most for being brave enough to take this journey with us to awaken your inner genius. We won't say goodbye. We will say until next time. See you next Sunday.
Maybe.